Hello, Los Angeles. Hello, lovers of the black and gold. Hello, fans of Major League Soccer. Hello to the millions
and millions
of defenders of the bank listeners. This is One More Sleep, the preview of LAFC's upcoming matchup, this time against Seattle. Our boys go on the road up to the Pacific Northwest to play at Lumen. And this is the final regular season game before we take a little hiatus and go into League's Cup. And this is truly a preview of a semifinal that we have coming up against them in August, but that's later on. My name is Christian Filliman, otherwise known as Philly, the platinum-haired flamingo. Joining me on the exact opposite side of where I'm situated, over in Lawndale, I give you the mouth of the South Bay, J.R. Liebert.
The scarf. What is good, Defenders Nation? Night before a match, so you know what it is. It's time for One More Sleep. And this one, Philly, it hits you right in the silver bells and cockle shells. Let me tell you, anytime the Seattle Sounders come a-calling, it is going to be a good one. And yes, we've got all the regular players: Jordan Morris, Raul Ruidiaz, Albert Rusnop, Stefan Fry, Yeimar Gomez Andrade, Joao, the same fighters that we have seen in the ring over and over and over, Philly. This matchup never disappoints in terms of the quality of at least one of the two sides every time we play.
Yeah, 16th overall regular season meeting between us and the Sounders, and we maintain that regular season series with an 8-3-4 record. Saturday's matchup is going to be the first time that we head to Lumen since Denny Bouanga scored against them in the Western Conference semifinals last November. Nobody gave us a shot in hell at winning on the road during the playoffs in one of the toughest places to compete in Major League Soccer, yet somehow our team did it. The question is, will history repeat itself? Can they do it again? If you look at the standings, it would seem as if there's a world apart between the Sounders and LAFC. But the Sounders have found something in the water. Brian Schmetzer, one of the best coaches this league has this team operating on phenomenal cylinders. Scarf, they just can't seem to lose. More than a half a dozen games, they have yet to lose.
Listen, this is exactly what we have come to expect. Brian Schmetzer, one of the class coaches in all of MLS, one of the most respected men on the sidelines. We talked about it in pre-show too. Undefeated in their last 8, 7-0-1, riding a 6-match win streak coming in. Just 1 loss in their last 13, just 2 losses in their last 18. They had a little bit of a slow start, but I tell you what, they woke up in a hurry. They are getting contributions from all kinds of players on the pitch. And look, Stefan Fry going after shutout, or I should say clean sheet, number 113 in his career, which would put him all alone in second place. We know what it's like to have a team get behind a player who's trying to push themselves to be all alone in second place for a big record. We better not help out Stefan Fry and his Emerald mates tomorrow.
Yeah, you talk about how they're getting goals from everywhere. Dude, 13 players on the Sounders have found the back of the net this year. It's pretty incredible. They don't have one outstanding scorer. They've got a couple, not to mention they've got several players that contribute very well. This is, again, a Seattle team that is far better than what their record indicates. And more importantly, they've basically left Lumen Field to be the fortress that it is. They've won 6. They've tied 5, which is interesting, but they've only lost 1. That is possibly until tomorrow, but we shall see.
Yeah, the other thing I'll say, Philly, too, is that they're just so good defensively. Now, I think they're going to be missing a big piece. Heading over to the Paris Olympics for the U.S. Olympic team is Josh Atencio, and he will not be available according to the player availability report released by MLS. But you're looking at a club, everything I've read from Seattle Sounders websites to the videos that I've watched, Brian Schmetzer calls this a massive, massive game. They are treating this, Philly, as a true 6 30-point matchup. They are in 6th place right now, 34 points on their 24 matches, 6th place. But they are treating this as a true 6-pointer. They are putting a lot of eggs into this basket before they also begin their Leagues Cup first round matches. So it's going to be really interesting to see, Philly, the intensity that I expect from the Seattle Sounders. We know it's a big stadium. We don't play well in big stadiums, or haven't up until this year, although we did beat them in 1-0 last time we went there. But Philly, it's the big stadiums, it's turf, it's Seattle, it's their intensity. And we are going to have to take a punch or two in the mouth and be ready for that when we head up to Seattle.
Yeah, we a punch or two in the mouth, we very well may take. But even going back to our last 5 games against the Sounders, we've not lost. We've won 4 games. And there was that one match over at Lumen on March the 18th of 2023 where we came out of there with a draw. You and I were hanging out in Koreatown watching that game over at Beer Garden. I will remember that very vividly. It was early in the season. So we've actually been very successful against the Sounders as of late. These games are never high scoring. I don't recall a time where we've seen very many high scoring games against Seattle. But again, going on the road, not the greatest. You talk about the omission of Atencio. LAFC is going to be without a couple of key players once again. Steve Cherundolo in the press conference earlier today had made the comment that Timothy Tillman would not be ready for tomorrow's matchup. And we see how we've played without Tillman in the last 2 games. Not the greatest, even though we've only lost 1 and tied 1. In addition, Kike Oliveira also won't be playing, as per what Steve said in the press conference. So you got a forward that contributes for us. He's the 3rd scorer on the team. And another midfielder who was, at least until last game, was the 3rd leading scorer on the team. So we're going to be somewhat hindered as well before we go off on this little Leagues Cup break. And that's kind of what worries me heading into Lumen.
Yeah, Philly, I don't think anybody will argue the point that Kike Oliveira was the best player on the pitch in our last match against RSL. And you and I saw him walk into the press conference, and we were like, hey, I looked over at you and I said, Philly, it's never a good thing when a guy walks like I do walking into the press conference. And sure enough, Katya was the one that asked him the question. And he said, oh, yeah, no, I'll be fine. No worries. Just, a little limp after. Lied. He lied to us. He's not fine. He's hurt. So it's going to be next man up. We're going to talk about that in our keys to the match. But we're going to need a little bit more from Kai Kamara, Philly, than we got last match. But look, with all the different superstars playing in this match, obviously, Denis Bouanga and Mateus Bogusz, and Jordan Morris and Raul Ruidiaz, everybody else. This is a star-studded matchup. Let's get into our players to watch. Who do we think are the guys that you should be watching? You and I initially picked the same Sounder, so I switched it up a little bit. Look, I think for the Seattle Sounders, it does kind of start and end with their fearless leader, Jordan Morris. As much as I love all of the other different players that we could talk about on this pitch, Joao Paulo, one of my favorite players to watch, Raul Ruidiaz, Philly loves to call him the Peruvian Pistolier. Just all kinds of great players to watch. I'm actually going to throw out another name, Obed Vargas. He is just 18 years old, and he is an assist machine in limited minutes for Seattle. But in order to be an assist machine, the guy that Philly's going to talk about, Obed Vargas with 6 of them, then you have to have a guy on the other end who can put it away. And nobody will argue if we are building a wing of best wingers all time in the MLS Hall of Fame. This is MLS Hall of Fame. One day, Jordan Morris will certainly be in that wing right there alongside Kai Kamara, right there alongside Joseph Martinez and Carlos Vela and many of the other players that we have been lucky enough to see. Jordan Morris is special. And good old mate Bogusz, Mati is he needs to get himself back on the other side of things. He's going to want to redeem himself after that tough miss on that beautiful cross by Denis Bouanga. He really didn't make his mark, but unfortunately that's because the game plan they had going into it consisted of Matty staying up top a little bit more. And unfortunately, when Tillman went down, they had to abandon ship and throw out the playbook and do whatever they could. And by the way, we still defended very, very well in that last match. Look, we defended very well the last time we played Seattle. We won our home opener against them 2-1 with goals by Timothy Tillman and Matty Bogusz. So I think Matty's going to have to get himself back onto the scoring sheet in this one. We are going to need an all hands on deck effort with no Timothy Tillman and no Kike Oliveira. Maddie has to be the one to step up. We know what we'll get from Denis, and we need to get a little bit more from Kai, but I've got Jordan Morris and Matty Bogusz.
First, I'm smiling here because when you said Mate Bogusz, I'm like, oh no, you asked me if I misspelled, and then I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, I get what he did there. Like I really thought I biffed again. I mean, that's how you put it. That's how you spell it. So,
yeah,
I thought I biffed. UB in the chat asks, is it August 1st yet? That's a very good question. And I wish to a certain extent that was the case. And the reason being is because that's when we know, based on what Steve said earlier in the press conference, that's when we're going to have Olivier Giroud. He also mentioned, defenders, that he would not be opposed to him getting minutes. He's not necessarily going to start him right off the bat, but in his exact words, he's not opposed to him getting minutes immediately. So it's just a matter of time till we get to see Olivier Giroud. Will we see him in the 2 Leagues Cup games between Xolos and Vancouver? No. After August 1st, though, that bodes very well. I assume we'll be moving on in the Leagues Cup because there's no reason to assume we wouldn't. So we may see Olivier sooner than we realize. So I just wanted to address that comment in the chat. Good stuff there. Genuine Cougar. Kike Oliveira had somewhat of a knock that he took in the last game against RSL. He limped into the press conference. So
and Philly, I just want to point out the ration of garbage, the basket of grief that I received from the Defenders chat. And don't worry, there's going to be more grief coming for me at the end of this. But when I said maybe not even until August 31st or August 27th, when we take on Seattle, everybody was like, that's too long. If we don't advance out of Leagues Cup, that's exactly when it's going to be. I do think, like you, Philly, that we're going to advance out of Leagues Cup, considering we have both these matches at home. But still, yeesh. Come on.
Yeesh is right. Okay. You mentioned Jordan Morris and Matty Bogusz. I like it. I mentioned, and he's finally starting to come into his own. I think this is really the breakout season Seattle was looking to have from him. Albert Rusnak. Now, all the eyes are going to be on Jordan Morris and Raul Ruidiaz, and for good reason. These guys score goals, and they score a lot of them. And despite the fact that Albert Rusnak only has 4 goals, he's contributed 11 assists. He's got more goal contributions than anybody else on the Seattle Sounders. He was a fantastic player. We remember him from his time over at RSL. And I mean, the way he's going right now, he's going to break an all-time a single season assist record for the Seattle Sounders. I believe it is Nico Ladero who has it, 16 assists. Albert Rusnak has several more games to go ahead and break that. So he's making a tremendous impact. If he's not going to score, he's going to facilitate. If he's not going to facilitate, he might score. He is the key to this team. Obviously, Jordan Morris and Raul Ruidiaz, the Peruvian pistolier, are going to be offensive, but Rusnak's a key component to it. And my other player to watch, and this one's it's kind of a no-brainer for a couple of reasons. He is the team's leading scorer and leading assist man, but Denis Bouanga, and here's the reason why. He's due for some kind of offensive contribution. He has not scored in a game since July the 4th when we beat the Galaxy at the Rose Bowl. Denis Bouanga's come close on a number of occasions to not only scoring, but at the very least assisting, which he has not done. He didn't do in the last game. But I think Denis is due. He's eager. And, well, if we're going to win on the road in enemy territory in a hostile environment, Denis Bouanga is going to have to score because without him, I don't think we have a chance.
No, I couldn't agree more. It's got to go through Denis. Let's talk about our keys to the match. I've got a couple for you, and the first of which is now, hold on. Let's everybody in the chat, as you're reading this, I sent Philly, the exact quote was, next midfielder up. Philly has chosen to abbreviate it.
Yes, because it was a very long word. It would have ran right into the logo. People know what you mean. In positional scenarios, MF is an acronym for midfielder, not anything
you typed else. You typed in the word progressive, but you couldn't type in midfielder. Okay. All right. Correct. Got it. Understood.
There's a double meaning to it if you don't know, but if you know, you know.
Yeah, but I didn't want that double meaning. Anyway, Steve Cherundolo talked about in the press conference that when a club is going to press you the way that Columbus did, and certainly the way that RSL did, then you have to stop building from the back. He said it in the press conference. He said, I can't for the life of me understand why they want to continue to try to build from the back. Well, guess what? That's exactly what I'm calling for. No more building from the back. I don't think we strung together two progressive passes in a row against Real Salt Lake. I was screaming at it from Founders Club. I was so angry at the way we were playing. Oh, let's keep shoveling the ball back, shoveling the ball back, shoveling the ball back, and getting this Hugo Lloris big ball over the top that we kept losing our aerial battles for. It was an absolute ridiculous showing by our offense. We were scared. We played scared against Columbus. We looked awful after Timothy Tillman came off against RSL. We need to put progressive passes together. And what I typed in was next midfielder up because
that's what I
we
wrote.
we may need a player like Matty Bogusz to be up top. We may need him to be in the midfield. I don't know where we're going to wind up putting him, but with no Kike Oliveira and no Timothy Tillman, our midfield needs to take charge of the match. And with Joao Paulo and Albert Rusnak, part of the midfield for Seattle, look out. It is going to be tough for our midfielders to step up and really start owning the pitch the way we did earlier. We need more from Edward Atuesta, although he played fine adjacent against Real Salt Lake. We need more from Ilie Sanchez, and we need more, if it's going to be from Matty Bogusz. It might be Eric Duenas, which I don't love that matchup against a very physical Seattle team. I'm just telling you right now, with those two guys missing, we need more from our midfielders. Hell, I kind of like Eddie Segura when they used him kind of as a double pivot, like another six out there as well. That was kind of fun. Maybe we'll see some more from Eddie. I didn't like him on the back line last game. Maybe getting a little more involved in the midfield, but we need some help.
Look, he did make a couple of good defensive plays, and I'm just going to say this just one last time. F stands for forward. D stands for defender. GK stands for goalkeeper. MF stands for midfielder. I did exactly what you had me type. I just abbreviated. I still can't comprehend or think or wonder what you might mean that this other MF can stand for. Anyways, let's move on. I like what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. Hugo Lloris probably had way too many touches in last Wednesday's game than he should have. We know Seattle's going to come out and be physical with us. They've always been physical with us. They've always had, them in Portland, always had the tendency to get underneath our players' skin and cause a ruckus. Whether it was irritating Atuesta or Diego Rossi back in the day, they're going to do that. So even if they do maintain a good portion of possession, what we're going to have to do is finish our chances on the counter. That's something we were unable to do against Real Salt Lake. And had we been able to convert at least on one of our chances on the counter, we're walking away with 3 points at BMO Stadium. If you go back to the first half in the highlight reel, Ryan Hollingshead had a great pass to Denny Bouanga. He slowed down the defense, track back, prevented Denny from getting a good look. Run, finish your chance there. And at the same time, towards the end of the second half, Denny had a phenomenal pass to Matty Bogusz, who just was unable to finish on his opportunity. Those are, I don't want to call them gimmies because the keeper, and in this case, Stefan Fry, fantastic keeper. But when you have that opportunity, you have to be clinical and you have to finish it because you don't know how and when they're going to come from. If we think that other teams have unlocked a little bit about how to compete against LAFC in terms of, clogging that midfield and being physical, well, then this is what we have to do to capitalize. We're going to get our chances on the counter. This is a very scary team in transition. Not many teams in Major League Soccer are better than LAFC in transition, but none of that stuff matters unless you can finish your chances. Finish your chances on the counter is something that we have to do.
Couldn't agree more, my man. Ooh, he's just putting it right out there, ooh, okay. There's no lead in, there's no anything, just bam, bam, 2-2 tie. Yeah, look, y'all got upset with me when I predicted 2-2 against Columbus. How many of you would have preferred a 2-2 than 5-1? I'm trying to be honest here, guys. I'm trying to say what I see. I'm trying to be real. I could be a homer. I could say we're going to win 3-0. I could say we're going to walk into Lumen Field, we're going to squash the Sounders, and it's going to be one of those performances that carry us through Leagues Cup, and we win that. And then we go on to the Open Cup on August 27th. We beat them, and we beat Indy 11 in the final of the U.S.
Indy
Open
11.
Cup.
Wow, bold,
Yeah,
Cotton, bold.
let's go. But I'm not, guys. I'm going to be real. The way that we have played these last couple of matches has me far less bullish than I was over our 13-match unbeaten streak, and that's okay. We all know this club. There are times where we go up and we go down, and we go up, we go down. Remember when we were all the way out in front of the Supporters Shield race in 2019, and we just waited for NYCFC, who stopped losing and just kept racking up point after point after point. We waited for them to kind of, so we could see them in the rear view a little bit, and then we turned it back on. I'm not saying we're doing that right now, but what I am saying is that this is one of those odd lulls that seems to happen. It's a 34-match season in the MLS regular season, plus we've got Open Cup, plus we've got Leagues Cup coming. The way that these rosters are structured, the way that the salary cap is structured, which, by the way, really happy about, and we're going to go into this on our podcast talking about this match. We're going to talk about the new roster restrictions that have been lifted from MLS clubs, which is kind of nice. The way that these rosters, though, are still currently constructed, I just find it hard to believe that we are able to go through Leagues Cup, Open Cup, Champions Cup, everything else that's going on. So I think this one's going to be a 2-2 tie.
We don't need to panic yet. We don't have to hit a panic button, because if you look over the last 15 games, we've only lost one across all competitions. That's pretty darn good. Many teams don't even get anywhere near this type of success, let alone sniff it. We're doing quite well. Yes, Columbus, we threw up an egg. Yes, we didn't have a great game against RSL, but history repeats itself. I bring this up again. 2022, we went on somewhat of a lull, and then obviously we started getting hot towards the end of the season. We win MLS Cup. Now, last season, we ran the tires off our players with all these different competitions that we had. We don't have as many this season, but it's very obvious to me that our boys are tired. This was a pretty hefty gauntlet, and the gauntlet ends in Seattle. That's the worst place for this to have possibly ended, in one of the most imposing places in Major League Soccer. And we're going to head in there without Kike Oliveira and Timothy Tillman. I think our players are really due for a break, and I think they're just going to want to get through this. They're going to be competitive, but in my mind, Scarf, I think they're just happy to get on the other side of Saturday. I don't think I've ever done this on our podcast, but this will be hopefully the last time I think this. Based on the way we've been playing, unless I can see something totally different, I don't think we win in Lumen Field on Saturday. But I also don't think we get dominated at Lumen Field on Saturday either. It's going to be a tough, gritty game. Seattle's going to walk away with the 3 points, but we're going to lull them into a false sense of pride, because when we come back August 27th in that 4,500 capacity venue in Tiwu, whatever the heck, Washington, we're going to beat them in the semifinals, where it actually matters, in the U.S. Open Cup. And some of y'all don't like the Open Cup, so it might not matter. But I do think that we'll lull them into a false sense of security. We don't win at Lumen. That's fine. We take our break. We get back on our high horse. Our players get healthy, and we come back and smack everybody within Major League Soccer and within the U.S. Open Cup. We take out Seattle in Seattle, same as we did last year, and then it'd be great if it was Indy 11, although that's a very bold prediction. I hate to say it, defenders. I just don't think we win this one without Oliveira and Tillman in Lumen, at least not this time.
Yeah, look, our defense has been playing great. It's the offense that need a little bit of help, and certainly without Tillman and Oliveira, it could be difficult. What I will say is this. I think we keep the midfield intact for this match. I think we start Matty Bogusz in the midfield. That means we're putting a lot on the shoulders of the teenager in this match. Kai Kamara in the middle, Denis Bouanga on one side, and David Martinez on the other. I think that's our best matchup against Seattle. I would rather keep Matty as a midfielder and actually play him in a little bit more of an offensive shape with Atuesta and Ilie much more defensively, And then our back line has been great. I'm not worried about who we trot out there on the back line. I'm really not. I really do think that we need to keep our midfield intact, Philly, to best mitigate those two players being out that you just said.
Yeah, I don't want to predict losses against our team. And Scarf, you've been with me doing this, since 2018. When have I ever
Yeah.
done this? I don't think I ever
Very
have.
few times, if ever. I think that might be the first loss
Yeah,
I've predicted one or two. I know that, but
yeah, for sure. I feel like I've always been the one riding the high horse. I just call it a gut feeling. I just think this is the turnaround. We lost 3 games towards the end of the stretch of 2022. Then we came back and we did our thing. I just think we need that break, albeit it's a week before we welcome Xolos de Tijuana in BMO Stadium. But a loss here and there is actually really good because you win more by what's the word? You learn by losing. And not to say that LAFC is going to want to go in and do that, but I think Seattle is hot right now. We're figuring it out. We're exhausted, fatigued, and we don't have our entire lineup healthy. We get through this hump. We have that week off. We do what we got to do against Leagues Cup competition. And then when the regular season resumes itself, we'll be ready, raring, healthy, and ready to go.
All right. Philly's got 1-0 Seattle. I've got 2-2. Let us know what you think in the comments. Hit us up on Twitter. We have a blue check mark now. Hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up on Instagram. Hit us up on, do y'all still use Facebook? Hit us up on anything you still use. YouTube. Comment away. Don't forget, head on over to defendersofthebank.com. Hit that merch button, that shop button. Buy something. That could be fun. If you're really upset at Philly, buy something from the store. That's what you should.
Yes, exactly. Take your anger out on me by buying things at Defenders of the Bank.
We love you guys so much. We want to know where you're going to be watching the game too. Philly and I have no idea where we're watching the game, but it's going to be fun up in Seattle. It's a double header, by the way. Don't forget, double header. LAFC 2, if you're going up there to Lumen, LAFC 2 plays at noon. LAFC plays at 7:30. A double header. LAFC 2 taking on Tacoma Defiance. LAFC taking on Seattle. Philly.
I'll tell you what, Bam. If we win 1-0 tomorrow, I'll do a shoey topless, and I'll record and I'll post it. How's about that? I'll take that bet.
Isn't it dry July for you?
Silence, Scarf.
All right. Yes, the retro kits were much nicer. All right, Philly, do we have cool outro music?
Yeah.